Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Welcome to It Takes Two with myself, Bilal Ali Hugh, and my co-host Ruby Sowah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm well, alhamdulillah. And this week we're joined by Sheikh Ahmed Haneef. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah. Really looking forward to this episode. And you know, this is a program where we explore the challenges that occur in marriage and try to help you come up with solutions of moving forward in your relationships in a practical way, inshallah. So we'll jump into the first letter. It's quite a relatively long letter and it's quite deep also. It reads, "Dear It Takes Two, I do not know how to approach my wife about wanting to marry again. When I first got married, this is something that I discussed with my wife and was one of the situations of the marriage. Naturally, I understand that this will take some patience and sensitivity and adjustment from all. Even though she agreed, my wife had some conditions. She wanted to be involved on who would come into our family. Unfortunately, she seems to be struggling with the notion of me having another wife and has irrational emotional outbursts, which I feel will have a negative impact on our children. I do not feel I should be held hostage when I'm not doing anything wrong, and my patience is beginning to wear thin. I am proposing permanent marriage, and I am being completely honest and open. I also find it amusing that many sisters complain that the religion is dictated by males when I think it's the opposite. I do not plan to become someone who has secrets, but it almost feels like I will be forced to lie in order to deal with the backlash. What should a person in my situation do when monogamy is not an option?" Very interesting letter.
Indeed.
Very interesting letter. And I don't think it's an uncommon situation from what I've heard on the grapevine. Sheikh, what say you on this question? What's your first thoughts?
First of all, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I think it is very encouraging or laudable that the brother intimated from the very beginning to his wife that he had intentions of having more than one wife before they got married. Mm-hmm. Okay. However, and the wife agreed. However, I think he is a bit unrealistic with respect to the fact that that type of decision, even though the wife agreed outside of the pressure of the marriage, for example,
so
outside
in
of
principle,
in principle, okay, that he would not expect her to adjust to this idea. Huh? Mm-hmm. And part of the adjustment to this idea is being uncomfortable with it.
To get to a point of comfortability.
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see? And I think what he is talking about is her expression on an emotional level, okay, of this discomfort. You see?
These outbursts.
Yes, and I think he himself might be a little bit too impatient with her. For example, describing it as an irrational outburst, for example, or irrational emotional responses, mm-hmm. or whatever it was said in the letter. Okay, irrational from a reasoning point of view, or irrational. It's not irrational from, let's say, an emotional point of view. If you understand what I'm saying, right? And she's really struggling with this, you know. And I think
it sounds like an emotional response. Sorry to cut, but it sounds like an emotional response to an emotional feeling, right? He's
sort of, and that's rational. It's understandable. Yeah. It's understandable.
That's right.
You see?
That's right.
And it indicates that he's not dealing with this properly, because I think he's looking at it from a man's point of view. He gives a reason why, she accepts the reason. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then now she's being upset about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it's not even accepted.
Like a right, not almost denying her the right to find it difficult.
Yes, exactly.
Well, maybe in theory, as you were alluding to, in theory it was palatable, but now that it's a reality, it's challenging. Because as I've said before, most women do not, they're not programmed or wake up to think that, oh, I want to be in a polygamous relationship. Situations have to occur that they find themselves in that situation. But most people, 90% of women, generally don't even have that in their concept, in the forefront of their mind.
Not told or discussed, it was brought into the, into the forum
from the outset. That's true, but a lot of the time, and I don't think it's uncommon in human nature, is that we think that, okay, if I'm faced with that situation, I'll deal with it later, but it's not going to happen because, I'm going to be enough. Women internalize it that if someone's saying they're looking for polygamy, there's some fault with them.
Yeah.
And that's just
which is definitely not the case. Which is definitely not the case.
Like, shouldn't you be busy with this? Shouldn't you be busy with that? And it's a hard concept because we don't have these discussions, and that's what I like so much about these shows, is that people write in their letters or things that are actually happening in real life. We don't have these discussions even in our own community. How open are we about this issue? And I think, you either fall into the camp of you're pro polygamy or you're not with women, and if you're in either one, then the other side isn't going to look at you in a... It's
so polarized, right?
It is. And I think in order to answer this question, we would need a whole show to dissect it, but I'll let the show continue.
I wanted to throw something out about the Ruby mentioned something important, that when a man says that, a brother says he wants another wife, that oftentimes wives will internalize that as, what have I done wrong? As if it's a deficiency in them, and not understand that it's in some men's nature. They have a proclivity. There's nothing wrong with that proclivity. The Quran allows it, but it's not based on a woman being, inferior or substandard or something of that nature. So women are oftentimes internalizing it wrong. It's just something about the brother's way.
That's one possibility, but in this case, the preference had been expressed before they got married.
Yeah.
So there's no room there for him, for one to say that he finds her inadequate.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just bring my own opinion, which probably doesn't count for much, but it's my own opinion.
Of course it counts so much, sister.
Thank you, but from what I've seen, and I have friends who have been in polygamous situations, and they work really well. Really, really well, and the whole community knows about it. The children get on fine. Not to say that there hasn't been an adjustment from all sides, but with life there's all types of adjustments.
There's adjustment with monogamy.
But the problem, I think, honestly, if we're going to be brutally honest, a lot of the time polygamy is looked upon as an issue that is something that can be controlled. So it's like you might have an addiction to food, but work on it, mend it. There's ways that you can work on it. And that's how a lot of sisters, I'm not saying all sisters, will see it. Well, that's a flaw, basically. There's no reason why you should have more than one wife. For what reason? If you want children, well, a lot of people already have children. What is your reason for wanting another wife? And I think if you're really honest with yourself, I can't get into the mindset of a man because I am not a man. And the man cannot get into a mindset of a woman because he's not a woman. And you can fluctuate. And a lot of the times, I think with most Muslim women, you can't even mention the word polygamy because they start feeling, oh my God, it's such a taboo. No, it's so Stone Age. But I really believe that Allah has put things there for a reason. And religion... But as a woman, you see a lot of the time women will tell you that, wasn't I enough? Why does he need this? Why can't he control himself? Or, we're not in a financial position, or he hardly spends time with me and the kids. And it becomes very, you're my best friend and I'm not going to share, and what can you do? You feel territorial. Does that make sense? You feel territorial that you've worked hard to be in this position. You've made sacrifices. Possessive. But there's not something necessarily wrong with that. It's in your nature. Just like women are very guarded. If you say something about a woman's child, even if it's right, they're ready to go to war for you. Yep. It's just that I'm protecting my thing. And it's also looked upon as a slap in the face. A lot of women do feel that. Why, you know, if you're so on your prayers, you're so on your working, you're so on this family, your mind shouldn't even be on somebody else. The fact that it is, a lot of women will find that it's the males who have a flaw. So it is looked upon as a flaw. Whereas on the flip side, there are other women who...
But why a flaw if it's something that's prescribed in the Quran and in the Sunnah and it's the practice of the Imam? It's so historical. And people always say situations, the most common thing is, oh, it's only allowed in war. But I mean, the amount of wars there are in the world, or situations where there is a shortage of brothers.
Well, no, to be brutally honest, because it
be
makes
brutal,
it...
be brutal.
Okay, honestly, you have to say things that would, you know, be right, but hard for yourself. It makes it palatable. I think for most women, it makes it palatable if you bring up excuses. So, for example, and you can't say someone doesn't have a right to their views and opinions, and they've researched it.
Sure.
But this argument that you have to be an orphan, or there has to be, or can the women have children, or are you the war situation?
Yeah. The good old-fashioned war one.
We as women, especially when you come from a family there's been a male, a father, or grandfather, or something, you base your whole life around the model of having a perfect unit, and that means husband, wife, 2.4 children,
nuclear family,
and maybe a cat or a goldfish. That is what we've seen. That is what society, even our community members, tell us this is what a family should be. So when you have a variation in your household, or you're confronted with it, it's difficult. It really is difficult. And I think with brothers, just because it's there and it says that's an option, please don't use that as a carte blanche card that this is my right and I'm going to go to town with it. You're dealing with people, emotions. Every marriage is different. And on the flip side, I know for myself, I have friends who are completely see polygamy in a completely different side. They're like, well, I don't want you to be by yourself. Okay. I don't want you to suffer. I want you to, if my husband can provide for you, the more the merrier. How many people do we know like that? They may not like the person.
That sounds helpful. But Sheikh, there's also, as Ruby's mentioned, the sisters who find it difficult, like the sister in this situation. Is there some sort of, I don't know, educational process, or is it just one of those emotional things that people know about it cognitively, intellectually, it makes sense, but it's always going to be, for some, an emotional aspect?
I think we have to remember that all of this is happening within a particular cultural and social context, right? It is happening in a Western context, okay? In an Eastern context, it's much easier to have polygamy than in a Western context. But it does not mean that necessarily monogamy in the Western context is working, okay? Now we were talking about excuses for polygamy, right? Persons are orphan, or one wife can't have a child, can't get pregnant, and things of that nature. Whatever Allah commands people to do, it is within their fitra. Allah doesn't command us to do things outside of our human nature. All right? Outside of our inclinations. Okay? So for men to engage in polygamy, it indicates that it is part of the nature of men. All right? But of course, like all inclinations, there are higher and lower degrees.
Yeah.
Right?
For individuals.
Yes, for individuals.
Yeah.
All right? The very same question that people might ask about why does he want another person? You could ask the same question as why does he want a person? Okay?
Interesting.
All right? So you have this predisposition among men. You also have a correspondent social relationship or social reality outside of that, in the sense that, one, outside of war and other, phenomena happening in the social world, okay? Even if you have a society where you have 50% men and 50% women, okay? among those 50% women, a high proportion of them will become sexually mature earlier than the men. All right? So at any one time in society, you will have more women ready to get married and less men ready to get married. Okay? And so polygamy is an act of justice in society, coupled with the predisposition among some men, okay, and I'm being very conservative here, towards that, towards that type of relationship.
You say conservative because you could have said most, for example.
Yes, right? Towards that type of relationship. Now, Western society, for example, is in crisis. Okay, the rate of marriage is going down. Okay, there's a high proportion of women in the society, right, who are not married. Okay, especially women over 30. You see?
Why do you say crisis? Or because some would say that in the Western society they're still in relationships with men.
Because there are fewer men, okay, ready and prepared to marry this large amount of women who are on the outside. It's happening in our Islamic society as well. Okay? Because we have in our Islamic society.
Do you mean in the Muslim community?
In the Muslim community,
or in the Western world?
In the Muslim community, in the Western world too.
Okay.
Right? Because in our communities, we have this glorification of marrying virgins. Okay? And so, for example, you have women who are not virgins, women who have been married before, right, as not seen as of marriageable material.
Yeah. They've done nothing wrong apart from being married, and the marriage didn't work out, and they've divorced. Totally Islamic, totally in order.
Exactly.
But there's this bizarre
right? And then you have women who they call them torshi in Farsi, meaning women who have not been married, you know, but have gone past their shelf life.
Wow.
Okay? So, for example, you know, if you're not married and you're like 28, you're not seen as of marriageable material. What does that lead to? That leads to facade. That leads to corruption in society. So actually polygamy is a means of controlling facade in society.
But to be devil's advocate, as a woman, who I could say, well, that's a woman's test. We all have tests. Why do you need to come into my family? That is, we all have burdens that we have to carry. So why should I be the, you know, the noble one here and, you know, lovingly open you with open arms to come into my family? The fact that you're not married or you're divorced, well, you know, pray on it, inshallah, Allah will reward you in the next life. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, or later on, or in another way, that doesn't necessarily mean that. It's kind of a guilt trip. A lot of women would interpret that as a guilt trip, that why have you now put that on my doorstep? You know,
but
it's hard out here. I found somebody. Now you want to come? No. It's just.
But it's a two-way street. It's not just that there's a sister that's unmarried that may find a brother of marriageable material, but he also too would find her.
Yeah, but what's that got to do with me? Hypothetically, it's nice that you two are having a jolly good time. You know, you have a connection, whatever. Yeah. But what's that got to do with me and my children?
The fact that it's permissible.
Again, what does that? What direct impact does that have on me and my children? You've invited yourself into a pre-made, pre-packaged environment here.
Well, the potential husband has a role.
Yeah, but what about the children? What about me? What if I don't particularly like the sister? What if she is? What if the sister is some, you know, 18-year-old? I'm now 50.
Oh, we've gone there. We've gone to the age factor.
18-year-old. No, not even a physical thing. And I've gone through times in this marriage where, you know, financially we didn't have stuff. You know, we built a history. I have nothing in common with you. But I'm meant to accept, because Allah says, you know, that you both have a connection. I'm meant to find this palatable. And I think this is an honest discussion. It's not going to go down well for everybody. You have to really, I mean, every relationship is different. They have their own dynamics. But, you know, going back to this brother, I don't know what his dynamic in his relationship is. Okay, he said to his wife, he said, as we all do in relationships, I've told you this before, you know, this is what I want.
Very noble of him, very noble.
No, I completely take
Because many brothers have that machination but don't lay claim.
I completely take my hat off to him for even acknowledging it and bringing it to the table. But I'm just saying, just because you've mentioned it and I know it's written like a rule book, like driving, you know you're not meant to go above the speed limit, but if you do, you're going to make an excuse. I was late to work, whatever. It's the same with women. We know Islamically what we're meant to do. Most women are trying to please Allah, but it still doesn't make it palatable. And sometimes you want to, but you just can't. It is not in your nature. And then you feel guilty because you just can't get to that level.
Sheikh, this sister says palatable. I want to ask a question about palatable. Though. What's the expectation on a sister, like the sister in this situation? Is it to just tolerate it? Is it to accept it? Are they supposed to be sister wives? Is that the assumption that they're going to get along? Like, because you mentioned the 18-year-old, or just to know that she exists and we're cordial if we see each other is sufficient?
It all depends upon the nature of the relationship, right? It all depends on the nature of the people and the personalities of the people who are involved. You know, maybe, for example, there are some households, and it's quite acceptable in Islam, all right, where they're quite completely separate, right? The wives have no connection with each other.
They know of each other.
They know of each other, that's about it. Okay.
Some people don't even know of each other. You have some situations
where the wives don't even know about each other.
Which I think is wrong. But that's my opinion.
It is problematic. It's not haram, but it's problematic. I would not encourage that. Okay. And you have situations where wives are co-wives, they're co-sisters and so on. You see. So it all depends on the relationship. But in response also to what you were saying, you know, what does it have to do with me, for example? Why do I have to make these sacrifices for this and so forth?
Find your own, you know, fish.
Okay. I think there are a couple of responses to that. Okay. First of all, Islam puts demands upon us. Islam puts demands upon us, which sometimes go against our nafs, right? For example, Islam says to us, you have to fast 1 whole month in the month of Ramadan. You know what I mean? And you're living in Britain.
But it's universal.
It's universal, but every one of us does it. Okay? We are not inclined to it. If Ramadan was a choice.
Yeah, but the women can't say, I want 4 husbands.
Very few of us will fast in the month of Ramadan.
Well, we can see that by how many of us fast Shaban, which is optional.
Hijab, all right? Hijab, especially in a Western context, all right, is something that we have to do, all right? And we are have an internal compulsion to do it when we understand the reason behind it. Okay? So Islam is not like Christianity, which says, okay, look, the most important thing is belief in God and your sins are forgiven and you can do whatever you want. Right? Islam actually gives you duties, all right, that sometimes go against where your nafs wants to go, all right? And you do it to please Allah.
But you could say that about the male. You could say this is probably a nafsi thing, guised as being honourable and noble or whatever, because you have your needs. Why don't you control yourself?
Okay.
We could say the fact that, okay, what would be the reason behind you having a second wife? Just hypothetically speaking. None of this is personal, but what would your reason be?
For the same reason of having a first wife.
Which is? I don't know what would the reason be, because you want children companionship.
Children companionship, developing your deen.
But you already have that.
Is that complete? That means it's a continuum, or is it that you can bring out different dimensions of your deen and experience with different personalities?
The most fundamental reason why people get married, okay, is because of and I don't know if you can say it on this TV.
What of evolutionary psychology nature?
On this TV, I don't know if you can say it on this TV. The most important reason why people get married, okay, is because of the physical intimacy part, if you know what I mean. Okay? That's it. If you didn't have that instinct that begins with the S word, okay, you wouldn't have marriage. Okay? Now, that instinct is not uniform. That instinct is not uniform.
For different individuals.
For different individuals has different manifestations. Right? There are some men, right, who have a higher level of it, right? And some women who have a higher level of it too. Right? There are some men who have a very low level of it. You know, and you can't blame some of these men for not wanting to get married because they have no inclination towards a woman like that. Right? You know, and you have women, some women, yes, you have some women who have no inclination towards it at all. Right? And Islam encompasses all of this. And this is why I'm saying, you know, one, you have, for example, a huge disproportion, okay, in the population between men and women in terms of marriageable age.
It's a continuous dynamic.
And then you have, because God is wise, God is just, and then you have a proportion of men, okay, who have a higher level of libido, right?
That's a good word.
Who are able to help, you know, balance that out. Okay, and this is what polygamy is all about. Now, give me a second. Now, in terms of women feeling bad about it and so forth and so on, okay, I think it's largely cultural. Okay,
So it's not Hollywood for the Western Muslims.
Largely cultural. It's not
Hollywood.
fitri. It's not fitri. It's not a natural thing. It's a cultural thing.
It's
Why?
a social construct.
How do you distinguish between nature and nurture? How do you determine between the nature of somebody and external environment? Okay, how do you notice that? How do you do this? One simple way of doing this is looking at society on a broad level from different eras and different geographical locations and so on.
It's a time and place.
And you would find there are some societies where there are women, okay, who do not have a problem with polygamy, who don't.
Because I understand what you're saying.
Okay. You know, and so I would think that in a Western context, all right, women's reaction to this is based upon that cultural environment, okay, and they need more support and more consideration and more patience, you see, because of this particular reality.
I think what would be really useful is to have this open dialogue which we're having, and I think again, it should come from sisters, because there are sisters in the community who don't even want to announce this thing because they're worried about everybody's reaction towards them, their children, etc. And I know places in America and Canada where there's families that are very open about this is our lifestyle choice. And in every relationship there's issues. You're dealing with human beings. We all have our hang-ups, we all have our little whatever. But I think it's important to have the discussion. And even in, you were saying in some continents of the world where polygamy is practiced and it's all hunky-dory, well, no, because we're human beings, it might be, well, I can't stand the way she cooks her meat, or blah, blah, blah.
Do you think we can accept that in the sense that even monogamy is not hunky-dory? Marriage one-on-one is a challenge. Marriage by nature is a challenge because you're bringing personalities together. So.
It is, but if we had an open discussion, and I think if women had a space...
Do you mean like with a live audience, for example, conducting something like this with a
that
live studio audience?
But if women had a space where they could be genuinely honest with themselves and honest with each other to say, look, I find this difficult. This is something that I've prayed for, that I would want my, Prince Charming, quote unquote. And I don't want to share. And that's okay to say, I don't want to share.
Absolutely.
It's okay, I don't want to.
And it's okay to feel like that too.
And I've tried, it is. But let's talk it out.
Let's
make it comfortable. Yeah. Don't let the brothers just be like, well, this is my right, I'm going to do it. Because we kind of go more inwards, and we're so anti.
Was that Sheikh saying that it needs sisters maybe in this environment in particular, like, for example, sister in this situation need that bit more patience and a bit more empathy, a bit more.
And I've seen sisters who have gotten divorced because their husbands have decided on this route, and I've asked a few of them, honestly, do you feel liberated? Do you feel better now that you don't have that support? Do you feel, is it easier? Because a lot of the time, if you're honest, you'll be like, yes, I can do what I want. I don't have to deal with that. But there are times in the day when you're like...
So what's the answer? What do they say?
The answer is, I feel better because my conscience is clearer, but I feel sad because that was my best friend and that was my history, and we had something. But it's almost like a political statement. So in their minds,
more political than practical.
Well, in their minds, they feel freer because you don't have to answer to anybody or your colleagues, and you don't want to deal with, bumping into that person, for example. You get emotional about it. But the heart is, you've had a history with this person.
This program has gone so quickly. We haven't, you know, we've just scratched the surface, but the time has gone so quickly. Can I have a closing statement from yourself?
Closing statement. I would, the brother, I would find sisters that in the community, you can do it discreetly, that are in the situation, you can find out, or who are not in the situation, who can talk to your wife and who can give her both perspectives, so she can form a decision for herself. Patience is needed, and this is not only about your life, but I do believe that, you know, sisters, we need to be careful. We ask for honesty, but when we get it, we don't like it.
Be careful what you ask for.
You know, be careful what you ask for, but, you know, keep talking, you know, it's a thing in progress.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, sister. And Sheikh, now for your closing remarks.
I'm lost for words. Look, polygamy is a reality. Polygamy is a reality. Allah recognizes this. Polygamy is not just something for lust. Okay, polygamy is a very important instrument for the application of social justice, insofar as recognizing the rights of women to companionship and to support.
Thank you so much. Thank you both so much. And thank you all for staying with us for the duration of It Takes Two. And we hope to see you next time. But until then, remember to stay safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
If you have any questions or queries that you would like to send to It Takes Two, please email us at ittakes2@safirtv.com.